Hey, welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the I guess that's how things are going to go now edition. Today is episode 233. American crocodiles have made a comeback thanks to a nuclear plant in Florida, and these crocodiles are overheating thanks to climate change. My friends, today we have a tale of two crocs, two species of crocodile living on totally different sides of the world, in totally different hemispheres, and living under radically different environments. What they do have in common, however, is that they both are trying to survive on a planet dominated by and very much affected by us humans. In the first half of the show, we'll be heading to everyone's favorite state for the worst reasons, and believe it or not, this is going to be a positive story. And a positive story that only a state like Florida can produce. Native to mostly South Florida and parts of Central America, South America, the Caribbean, but can be found as far south as Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela, the American crocodile has seen some shit. Even though males can reach lengths of more than 20 feet, which is just under the height of a 2-story building, by the way, and weigh in at over 2,200 pounds, with females clocking in not too far behind at 12 goddamn feet in length, this animal is still no match for armed humans. And I don't just mean like handheld weapons used for hide collection. According to a study published in an issue of Florida Field Naturalist back in 2008, you know the one, in southern Florida, about 2/3 of American crocodile deaths are attributed to road collisions. And only 10% are due to intentional killings, and only 5% to natural causes. I'll say that again, 2/3 attributed to road collisions. Between 1967 and 2007 alone, 143 American crocodiles died in vehicle collisions in southern Florida. And if you do the clickety-clack calculations, that's someone hitting 3 to 4 crocs a year. And I can't think of anything more Floridian than this. Along with that wildly American fact, the American crocodile has seen its numbers decimated thanks to hide hunting, pollution, loss of habitat, and commercial farming. But today I have some good news. On March 20th, 2007, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, which may or may not still exist by the time you hear this episode, they declassified the American crocodile as an endangered species, changing its status to threatened. That is huge. It's a huge improvement, and one of the reasons why we can give thanks is in part to a nuclear plant. For real. My friends, we will be heading over to that plant. We'll learn about its construction. We'll learn why, despite the concerns that come to mind, these crocs are actually safe and not mutants. We'll learn how all these things added up to accidentally create a crocodile haven. We'll also meet the team that keeps an eye on them. And I have to say, they have a pretty cool fucking job. Then after the break, we're leaving Florida for Australia, and the American crocodiles for estuarine crocodiles, and for a study 15 years in the making that'll make you say, son of a bitch. Son of a bitch, you gotta be kidding me. In a paper published this past February in the journal Current Biology, researchers from the University of Queensland School of the Environment analyzed the sensor data of over 200 tagged crocs, and they made a graph. And it's not looking good. The average body temperature of the crocodiles increased by a small but significant amount, and this corresponded with the rise in water and air temperatures. If you find yourself asking, okay, hold on, what's the big deal if it's a small number? Well, imagine your internal temperature rose 1 or 2 degrees for days on end. Yeah, it's not great. And for ectothermic or cold-blooded animals, it's even worse. So, what does this do to crocs exactly? We're going to find out. We're also going to meet the researchers who discovered this info and how it is a remarkable piece of evidence on the effects of climate change. Oh, and hi, I'm Jill Chacha, by the way, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my newly hatched business goose. To begin, I'm going to ask you to slip into your finest wide-brimmed sun hat and to slap on the strongest bug repellent your soft body can handle, because we're heading on over to not one, but 2 national parks that don't fuck around when it comes to water, heat, and humidity. And where else is this trifecta so encapsulated than at the tip of America's wang? Everyone, please imagine Florida. Thank you. Point to the very end of this peninsula and move your finger just a smidge to the right, over the aptly named Biscayne Bay. Now, if you will, draw a long comma. Excellent. These are the Florida Keys. But at the very top, there is our first stop, the extraordinary Biscayne National Park. Now, this place is unlike any other park in the U.S. because if you walk through the entrance, the most you're going to see are palm trees and a deep blue sky, and at the surface, it resembles any other beach in this state. So if you're here to get your national park on, you're going to have to bring a boat, a kayak, and your best thong and sail or swim out to enjoy the sights. 95% of the park is water, and all the things to see or do are under the surface. Covering a whopping 270 square miles, it includes the shallow waters of Biscayne Bay, the coral limestone keys, and the offshore Florida Reef, which I am shocked to discover myself is actually one of the largest coral reefs in the world. The shoreline swamps provide a nursery for larval and juvenile fish, mollusks, and crustaceans, while further out in the bay you could watch 200 species of immature and adult fish flop about, seagrass beds sway, and sponges, soft coral, and manatees not doing much other than being friend-shaped. An incredible 16 endangered species call Biscayne National Park their sanctuary after the park was established in 1980. Before then, in the early 20th century, the area became known as a secluded destination for wealthy Miamians who built getaway homes and social clubs. Luckily, that is no longer the case. We ate the rich and nature healed. Before any of us, though, were the Tequesta people, who for about 2,500 fucking years occupied the shores of Biscayne Bay. They were a community that lived on fish and other sea life, and it all came to an end when Juan Ponce de Leon stumbled into the area in 1513, air quotes, discovering the Florida Keys and bumping into the Tequesta people on the mainland. The park does have its own speckling of islands, and Elliott Key is the largest, about 8 miles in length, and every inch is just terribly gorgeous. At its shoreline, you've got slutty mangroves with bright subtropical vegetation, but as you walk inland, you'll find something completely different. Hardwood forests, made up of trees, including the wonderfully named Gumbo Limbo. There's mahogany, ironwood, and plants like torchwood and satinleaf. You'll find the usual delightful suspects living here too, like loggerhead turtles and gulls, but there is a lovely surprise. Marsh rabbits. For real. They're kind of like a small cottontail rabbit, and when I say small, I mean it. They're no more than 3 pounds. They're so tiny. This place is magical. And it's not alone. For our second stop, please imagine that map you just created before. Point to Biscayne National Park, and now move your finger back onto the mainland. Perfect. Move it south just a smidge, and here we are. A place you may have heard of, Everglades National Park. Turns out, the Everglades is the 3rd largest national park in the mainland United States, and as such, it's home to an even bigger, whopping 36 threatened or protected species, along with 350 species of birds, 300 species of fresh and saltwater fish, 40 species of mammals, and 50 species of reptiles. That was a lot to say. The amount of life here, and the park's past, present, and future are just overwhelming. There could be an entire other podcast that dedicates all its episodes to this place. That is how massive and historic it is. So, needless to say, when you have something so precious to the north like Biscayne National Park, and something so irreplaceable as the Everglades to the south, it only makes sense to build a nuclear plant in the middle. My friends, please join me now, will you, betwixt these 2 parks, where you're going to find the pleasantly named Turkey Point Nuclear Generating Station. Now, in all fairness, Turkey Point was built prior to the parks being officially labeled as parks, with its construction beginning in 1967. But before we get into some of that, you might be asking, what is with the name? I am so glad you asked. According to the wiki, The first time the words Turkey Point appear is in a written reference from 1865, and the reference suggests that the area got its name because of the presence of what we call in modern times the anhinga. Now, I gave that a Google, and wouldn't you know it, the anhinga is not some terrifying venomous cryptid. It's actually a sleek, graceful-looking seabird with quite a long neck. If you drop whatever cryptid you're holding right now and head on over to today's post on the old social medias, I've got a photo of a female anhinga just chilling on a branch. She looks twice divorced and loving life. Now, the word anhinga comes from aningya in the Tupi language, which translates to devil bird or snake bird. This is awesome, and it came about because when the bird swims, only its neck and head appear above water, so it kind of looks like a snake ready to strike. When newly arrived white people heard the name aningya, they did what white people do in this situation, and they changed it to what they could say. So, you guessed it, they started to call this bird the water turkey. As for the nuclear plant, it's also very striking looking. If you have today's post still open, just swipe on past the anhinga, and you'll see a Google map. And you're going to see, I'll give you a second. You're going to see it right away. Now, if you said to yourself, that is crazy, I've never seen anything like this on a Google map before, you're right, you are not exaggerating. My glowing business goose. What you're looking at is not the reactors themselves, but the area of Turkey Point's cooling canals. Yeah, instead of a cooling tower, the plant has a unique network of canals covering over 6,800 acres, or 10 square miles if you fancy measurements in miles instead. The result is this funky-looking, huge pentagon dug out of the land, and it's filled with row upon row of water. And speaking of results, when Florida Power and Light began construction on the power plant, they just assumed they'd be generating power for all of southern Florida. They had no idea that those canals would also result in the following. Let's get into it. In 9 short years after the plant opened in 1976, American crocodiles just started popping up. And not just like one or two here and there. I'm talking about a very noticeable number of fully grown mother crocs who decided to take up nesting in the raised edges of the canals. Quote, the utility had inadvertently created the perfect crocodile habitat. The saltwater cooling canals were ideal for mature animals. The berms, or raised edges that contained the canals, provided the perfect nesting sites, and the adjacent freshwater ponds served as a nursery for the hatchlings. End quote. From Sean McKenahan, just Sean from the local PBS station, WTTW, so he probably is the only Sean there. My friends, thanks to this trifecta, along with the consistent water levels reducing the risk of nest flooding, plus being relatively free from humans and predation from other animals, and being situated literally in the middle of the croc's natural habitat, Turkey Point isn't only making energy, it is also pumping out hatchlings, like a shit ton. So many nests belonging to this endangered animal were showing up that the United States Fish and Wildlife Service was like, y'all, Turkey Point, a nuclear plant, it is critical in this animal's comeback. So, in a move not seen by any corporation since, Florida Power and Light agreed to work with the service to protect these animals. Yes, a company did the right thing. A crocodile monitoring program was launched in 1978 and a crocodile management plan in 1983, all led by what's been dubbed the Croc Team. It's time to meet some of them and learn the cool shit that they do every day. According to floridamuseum.ufl.edu, Mike Lorett has been with Florida Power and Light for the last 7 years and is currently the wildlife biologist and senior environmental specialist at Turkey Point. When baby crocs are born, Mike and the gang collect the hatchlings, record their size, sex, and weight, and then they pop in a microchip before they release the hatchlings into the canal system. When not tagging babies, the team conducts population surveys via airboat throughout the year. When they see a croc, they take a croc, pulling it out of the water to scan and update their records. Quote, all of this info is crucial to better understand the population numbers and the health of the American crocodile here in South Florida. We check its body condition and make sure everything is intact, Mike told WTTW. My friends, get this. Since the creation of the Croc team, more than 8,000 crocodile hatchlings have been tagged. And according to their estimates, in the 2022 season alone, the nuclear plant saw 33 crocodile nests, producing the third highest number of hatchlings tagged and released at 512. 512! That is a lot of pointy babies. Now, if you're wondering, yeah, that's heart-lifting. This is a heart-lifting story, Jill, but how the fuck are they not mutants? If you ask that, I've got you. The canal water circulates through a closed-loop system, and it never comes into contact with the radioactive material. Turns out, though, it's other non-nuclear stuff that can be a danger, and on occasion, shit does happen. For example, quote, in the mid-2010s, poor water quality and increased temperature and salinity in the system caused an ecological collapse as seagrass died and algae thrived. Crocodiles experienced extreme stress and starved, and their population plummeted, end quote, from a Center for Biological Diversity 2022 press release. And in 2014, the canals overheated twice, causing the plant to shut down. It's certainly not perfect, but it's the best Florida can do. The bar is low, but thankfully, the hatchling numbers are still looking pretty high. After the break, we're leaving the Wang for the University of Queensland in Australia, where biosensor data over the last 15 years was compiled, and boy howdy, it revealed a really crappy trend. More croc stuff next. Stay tuned.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Is anyone out there?
Another salesperson enduring the endless search. Exhausting. If you want to get right to the right conversations, you need LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Whether you're looking for new leads or strengthening existing relationships at your top accounts, get right to the right conversations with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Try LinkedIn Sales Navigator now with a free 60-day trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial.
Terms and conditions apply!
And we're back. We are so back. And my friends, I'm going to need you to work on your best g'day and to hold on to that oversized sun hat of yours, because we need to meet wildlife guide David White, who spent 28 years of his life monitoring the Lower Daintree River, located within North Queensland's UNESCO Wet Tropics World Heritage Area. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who may be wondering where the fuck this is and who the fuck is that, don't worry, I've got you. Everyone, please imagine Australia. Thank you. Point to the very northeast corner in the upper right, and there is Queensland. And in its very upper right-hand corner, running along the coast for about 450 kilometers or about 280 miles, is a tropical rainforest that is not only home to rare and endangered animals and plant species that can be found nowhere else, but get this. These lands contain remnants of the Gondwanan forest that once upon a time covered Australia and parts of Antarctica, like 50 to 100 million years ago. It is a time capsule unlike any other. And like many time capsules, they have crocodiles, since these fuckers have been around for over 200 million years. And for a mere 28 years of those 200 million, David White has been dedicating his life to teaching the public about them. However, it's been getting more and more difficult to do his job because the crocs are becoming less and less visible on his tours. Quote, "They hide for longer," he told Connor Byrne and Sophie McManus of abc.net.au. In the past, the water temperature has been up to 31 degrees Celsius or 87 degrees Fahrenheit, but this year, we've had 32 degrees or 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Warmer water makes my job very difficult because the crocodiles spend a lot of time on the bottom, where it's cooler, and they're very hard to find in the summer months. End quote. My friends, it turns out David's personal experience of the vanishing crocs has been backed up by a recent study 15 years in the making. Let's get into it. Please now join me, will you, at the whimsically named Steve Irwin Wildlife Reserve, also in Queensland, and home to the Wenlock and Ducie Rivers on Cape York Peninsula, which is basically further north from where we just were. It was here, between 2008 and 2023, researchers tagged 203 estuarine crocodiles, which is really hard to say, so we're just going to call them saltwater crocodiles. And they did this all in hopes to get just some general information about these creatures day to day and their biological readings. According to Richard Pallardy of LiveScience.com, quote, they track the reptile's body temperature using acoustic devices implanted under their skin. These devices sent signals to nearby receivers, and additional trackers were used to monitor when the crocodiles submerged themselves, and for how long. If a crocodile was not detected for a period ranging from 30 minutes to 24 hours, and then was detected again with a higher or lower body temperature, the scientists assumed that the croc had altered its behavior to regulate its body temperature, either basking in the sun to raise it or finding a cool spot to lower it. End quote. This was it. This was a simple premise. But holy shit. After PhD candidate Caitlin Barham and Professor Craig Franklin of the University of Queensland got together and said, maybe we should take a gander at all this info since it's been 15 years. The results were more than telling. My equally hot business goose, I'm going to drop some number bombs on you, and then we're going to go over why these bombs kind of suck. Are you ready? Of course not. No one is ready to accept our demises here, but we're doing it anyway. According to the team's paper, titled Climate-Induced Shifts in Crocodile Body Temperature Impact Behavior and Performance, since 2008, and after nearly 6.5 million temperature readings, the internal temperature peaks experienced by the crocodiles increased by 0.5 degrees Celsius, or almost an entire degree in Fahrenheit, and their median body temperature increased by 0.11 degree Celsius. 135, more than half of the 203 crocs, showed body temperatures exceeding 89 degrees Fahrenheit at least once. 45 experienced body temperatures above 93 degrees Fahrenheit at least once. For context, the average temperature of a saltwater crocodile is around 86 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit tops. So, why the fuck are they so hot? I'm glad you asked. As reported by Richard Pallardy, quote, the highest body temperatures were linked to El Niño periods, during which unusually warm Pacific currents led to hot, dry spells on land. The frequency of these periods is believed to be increasing as a result of climate change. End quote. Now, if you ever ran a fever of a few degrees for just a few days, you probably felt like shit and not up to doing much. You probably just wanted to lie somewhere and hope that an asteroid hits. Well, guess what, my toothy friends? So do crocs, but a lot worse. Being ectothermic, meaning their body temperatures are determined by the external environment rather by internal processes like us mammals, this shit really impacts their lives. With water temperatures higher than usual, with the air temperature higher than usual, cooling behaviors were detected more frequently. And that means, as so wonderfully explained by Caitlin to Live Science and abc.net.au and phys.org, quote, a hotter croc has a higher metabolism, and a higher metabolism means burning oxygen more rapidly. Lab research found that they just couldn't hold their breath for as long, and it would take them a bit longer to recover or cool at the surface. Because they are a sit-and-wait predator, we're concerned that shorter dives might limit their ability to hunt, and also to hide and escape from predators, or travel. For example, a croc would disappear for hours and then come back 1 or 2 degrees Celsius or 1.8 or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit cooler. If their time and energy is dominated by the need to stay cool, activity necessary for hunting, keeping safe from predators, or reproducing is reduced. End quote. So, this blows. So many chunks. But good news. It gets worse. Remember David White? Well, his sharp eyes have noticed something else too. Extreme flooding. And that means nests and their eggs become flooded. Although he's witnessing this in real time, he is staying optimistic though. And that's because crocs are way better at surviving than we are. He told local ABC News, quote, "They've gotten through all those terrible climate changes that the dinosaurs couldn't cope with and meteorite strikes. I think they're going to adapt and get through it." End quote. Well, yeah, that may be true. But if you think about it, to put the actions of humans up there with an extinction-level asteroid, it feels shitty. It feels real shitty, but it's right. So, you know what? Here's to 200 million years more. And thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends about how many crocodiles Floridians hit with their car every year. That's a thing. I didn't know that was a thing until 5 minutes ago, and now I'm sharing it with you. Tell them about how crocodiles are also overheating. This sounds like a terrible conversation, but we just had it, and we had a good time. An extinction-level thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.